We're back, maybe. I don't know what. My connection seems fine, but it's not. Still lagging. I'm not sure if the Go is back for real yet. I think we're still lagging. Let me just not get fancy. The live will be saved for sure. All the lives are saved on YouTube, which is kind of like why I like using it. I might be having some internet problems though, so I don't know how long we'll go, but mainly just here so that I do it, and then it'll be easier to do it a second time if I just do it the first time. I guess I'll just, I don't know, put lines on the thing, and if it doesn't work, then it doesn't work, and we'll try again later. Yeah, I have a little spiel about what I want to do, but I might as well not get into all that right away, just in case. I'll just kind of put things on the page. This isn't necessarily Jinx, this is just nothing. While I stare at how many frames are dropping, which is a significant amount. Happens. Not my job to understand how the internet works, so. I would like to draw Jinx if things seem like they are running correctly. You're not noticing frame drops? That's good. Yeah, I mean, if it seems fine for you guys, then that's all that really matters. I got a thing at the bottom of my screen that says that things are being bad. But what does a computer know? I mean, to be fair, I suppose drawing is not the most visually intensive thing, so it might be a little harder to notice if there's some amount of lag. This pose doesn't really make much sense. I've been drawing with a new brush. Something sort of, I don't know what the word. It's an ellipse. Like, I can make it bigger real quick. The brush tip looks like this, so it does a lot of line weight stuff for me. And it's got some texture. It's just a fun one to use. I've been enjoying myself with it. Yeah, this is not the Jinxler yet. This is just testing the waters. Sometimes my internet just isn't the most stable, so it's probably not anything crazy. It's just the way it goes at times. I've also, as you may have noticed, I have nothing on this stream. It's just the canvas. I have no camera. I got the chat. I think alerts will come up if they happen, but I'm not good at getting myself to stream, though I want to do it more. So I'm just doing it real casual. I definitely at least had a camera for the last couple of streams. But I don't have great lighting down here, and when I don't have great lighting, I'm always like, ew. Yeah, I was working on the tutorial for a while, and I started recording, I recorded all the voiceover, and then I started trying to record the actual drawing part of it, and dude, it's so hard to draw with some form, any sort of accuracy when you're trying to have a goal like that. So I've been rethinking ways to actually do it, and I think it might be easier for me if I just actually did it all live instead of trying to do post commentary or pre commentary and draw and whatever. So that's another one of the reasons why I just want to get myself to stream more, even if it's just for a little bit, like it will be today, so that I can get comfortable with it. And if I can get comfortable talking on here, then I can do the other stuff. I can do tutorials. My goal right now is to not say so if I just stop talking, that's me not saying but not having words to say at the moment. Yeah, I definitely want to do tutorial stuff. No one seems to be saying that it's exploding right now, so hopefully that's a good sign. You notice the way that I started drawing this little drawing is completely different than what it ended up as. Mainly, almost no part of the original pose that I sketched in is here anymore. It all got reworked. And I don't think I was willing to do that for a long time. And this is just a little thing, but I think being willing to just completely destroy everything else, everything you've made so far, because you have an idea of how it could be better, is a very valuable art skill. Make her smile? I can make her smile. I think people get too hooked to the things that they've drawn already. And it's harder, especially when you're not just on a very immediate, I just drew this thing. It's like when you get stuck drawing one part of the body and then you finish drawing that part of the body. Like say that you're drawing like a torso, so we'll get a basic rib cage thing in here or something. Whatever, so I draw like the rib cage, and I draw torso, and I draw whatever. Maybe I give them clothes, and then at the end of it, I'm like, dude, I love what I just drew here. This looks awesome. But then when it comes time to, it's like, oh, I need to draw an arm. Like, oh, it would be good to have an arm going here. But then you notice often, if you look for it, a lot of artists, clearly the arm should probably be in front of what they drew already. But they think, I don't want to cover up all this great work I've done. So they pose the arm weird. They just like put it out here or something. Or I think you see it especially often in people who are trying to draw stuff and are trying to be sexy. They'll like draw a nice butt and then will not be willing to cover any part of that butt up in order to make the pose look more organic. They sacrifice the flow of the painting because they don't want to delete something or draw over something that they already made. But sometimes you gotta do that. All that to say, don't get too married to everything you drew, because sometimes, even if you like a thing, if it's not serving the greater purpose of the piece, then it can be good to scrap it and do something else. Yeah, changing the focus is good if you can do that. Really, the thing you actually need is pre-planning, ideally. But also, it's good to know that sometimes covering a little something up makes for a more appealing piece. Having a little bit of restraint, you know, not having to show everything, leaving a little up to the imagination is not a loss. That's actually a very powerful tool to use. Alright, well, no one has said that, I don't know, the world is ending in a little bit, so I'm assuming that the stream is at least watchable. Now, I don't have too long that I'm going to be on, because I gotta make dinner, but over at least maybe a couple of streams, I want to work on drawing Jinx, and specifically I think it'd be fun to do it on stream because I think fan art is an interesting thing that a lot of people have some sort of misconceptions about, or at least they don't see it as much of a free concept as it really is. Because a lot of what goes into fan art is character design in of itself, especially when it comes to drawing something in a different style or in your own style. You kind of gotta do some character design work and take liberties and break from the actual design, which is something I do all the time. When I draw versions of characters, especially when I draw them a lot, I draw them usually very differently than the source material. Like, one character I think is a good example of that if you've been around, you know that I've drawn many times, is Marceline from Adventure Time. And I think if you go back to some of the first Marcelines that I drew, they're a little closer to the show model. But now, at this point, I've drawn her so many times that I've really got my own thing going here. She has big ears, which she, just does not have at all in the show. Over time, they used to be a little shorter and a little more triangular, but over time they've become these big old, long, skinny things. Often the face is still pretty similar, but I like drawing her with big teeth. Stuff like that. So when it comes to figuring out how I want to draw a new character that I like from someone else's work, the biggest part for me is figuring out how I want to draw my version of the character. And that involves finding the things about the character that are the most iconic and the things that they need to be recognizable as that character, sort of the non-negotiables. Then also just the things that I specifically like about them personally. Maybe they're not the biggest, most defining things. Not everyone would need to draw them for you to know that you're drawing the character, but the things that I personally enjoy a lot. Especially right now, my goal is stylization. It's simplicity. Ideally, what I'm going for is to find designs that I can use to make stickers or charms, that sort of thing. Which is another thing I would like to be doing more of. And the problem with stickers and charms is that there's kind of a specific style that a lot of people will use because it's not a big area, Stickers can be really long, but especially with something like an acrylic charm or a keychain, you kind of got to stick it into a pretty stout rectangle. So in this area, I can't really make a character too lanky because it's going to be a hard sticker to place somewhere. It's going to be a charm that's just going to break because if there's too much thin stuff around, it does not fill the area very well. It's not very compact. I'm sure you could technically do it, but it also just is not the kind of thing that I want to do. A big way that people obviously do it all the time is to have very chippy proportions, or big head, tiny little limbs. Put these little feet here. Honestly, those feet might even be, or legs might even be longer than what a lot of chibi styles are. But then I will just do this with the big hands ish. And that fills the area a lot better. And especially if there's some props or clothes or something, like they're wearing a little dress or something, then it fills the area way better. It becomes, in my opinion, a much more nice sticker or charm because it's compact, it's all in one area. The problem with that is I don't really like this. This is not my thing. So my goal more than anything is to find a style that works, that can be put into a rather compact area, but also, you see, this is why I need to stream more, because I am so bad at just speaking off the dome. But how about we just put down the goals? I want it to be something that is compact, and a lot of times when it comes to something being nice and compact, well designed, you want it to be balanced. Balance is super important. Something like in this Dylan, my OC, if anyone doesn't know, that we drew at the start of the stream, fucking 20 minutes ago, I don't know, this is a fairly balanced design, because she's got a big head, she's got a relatively small torso, but then her feet are bigger. They're not huge, but they're quite a bit bigger than the torso, and they get bigger as you go down. Her arms also, if there wasn't the sleeves here especially, her arms would be thin and then extend into big hands at the end. So kind of the idea I go for there is that you've got a big head, and then a little body, and then all the limbs. At the end of all the limbs, you've got these big appendages, because there's a sense of balance there where on the outside everything is the biggest, and as you go in it gets a lot smaller, and it works well, in my opinion. Everything is sort of opinion. Like if I was to draw her with this real big head, I definitely don't need to be spending really any effort on this, but I probably will, because I'm incapable of just letting something be simple, I guess. Just draw her and then give her this tiny little body and tiny little feet, tiny legs, tiny feet. Now, honestly, is there something kind of cute about this look? Yeah, you know, it's not the worst. It kind of looks like a me that you put really, really skinny and tall me on the Wii. But is it balanced? Not really. It just doesn't have a ton of structure. I think when something is this caricatured, it's not necessarily that it looks bad. It's that I think it limits a little bit what the design is capable of. Like, it's going to be hard for this little thing to have that much emotion, right? I mean, maybe not, maybe, you know. Honestly, maybe this is a little more capable than I thought it would be. I was trying to design to show a design that was a little unbalanced and looked weird, but I don't know. She's really not that bad. All right, well now I don't really know where to go with this because I don't actually hate this. But it's not really what I want to go for. Another reason being that I want something that is not very formulaic. I want something that is very malleable and can be used, a style that can be applied to many different characters to make many different things. I guess malleable here. And that meaning something like even styles that I really love. A big inspiration for something like this that I drew is for the panty and stocking style, which is obviously extremely cool. I think most people love it, even if they've not watched the show. It's very appealing. It's got the big limbs, a littler body. And it's cute and it's energetic, it's fun. But I find when I'm trying to draw something like that, it's harder for me as someone who's just trying to replicate a design to create meaningfully distinct characters, especially when it comes to the girls. I think in a lot of stylized designs, typically men or male characters have way more freedom of design. They're kind of allowed to look any which way that you want, and they all fit together. But in a lot of stuff, female characters, they kind of are very formulaic in the way that their bodies are constructed. Like they have a way that they look, specifically with the goal of just looking cute or pretty or whatever. And you look at different characters, female characters in a show, and they all kind of have a very similar structure because that's probably what the whole design was based around. And then you get a character like Garter Belt with them who has a way different shape design, and it's partially because he's a dude and he's just allowed to look different. All that to say, I want to develop a style for these stickers or charms that looks distinct and it looks unified. They all look like they're coming from the same place, but with enough malleability that you can emphasize different parts and use different face shapes, and it all kind of looks good. Something like this, we could easily kind of turn this into Jinx. you know, something close. I don't have my reference pulled up right now, but yeah, so we can kind of make this look like Jinx. But then my question, and it's because I don't really understand the style well enough, is obviously a big part of it. But if I was going to draw Vi, how distinct would I be able to make Vi look? Because I would want Vi to have a bit of a squarer jaw. Obviously, she's got her own thing of hair, which I don't know how to draw. I've not drawn Vi yet, I don't think. But then, like, I still kind of feel, all right, well, that's the body type, and then the feet in here, and then she needs her big gauntlets, but the hands are already pretty big, so that's not that crazy. It's mainly just that when I start trying to apply these square shapes, anything slightly more defined or angular, masculine in any way, then I think it kind of falls apart. And I want something that's just a little less defined. So if we do something that is especially shape forward, it's all based on simple shapes. All right, I'm messing up all my shortcuts here. Find something that's based first on shapes and then attach on top of that. I think it's really easy, or at least easier, to make things that are a lot freer. And that also comes with not having super distinct things, like every character's feet must be these big sort of My Little Pony hoof shapes that come out. It's good to have some characters be able to have tiny little feet, some be able to have these big stompy things. The only question is, how do you do that? And that's kind of what I want to figure out. So I just want to draw Jinx for a little bit and see what I can muster. Something that is compact enough that we can fit it to a thing, malleable enough that it's not sticking to a strict formula, and something that allows characters to be distinct. So I appreciate you guys listening to my starting rambling, which I just need to do so that I can get better at rambling, and then I'll be able to put together a sentence that I can feasibly put into a YouTube short, because it doesn't need 15 minutes for me to, you know, say a sentence. So we'll just try to get a basic design out here first, because I don't have too long. Someone asked what I was making earlier. If you're still here, I'm making like a stir fry with ground pork, like carrots. I don't think it's gonna be very complicated, but it's what we've got around. So what I've got here, I've got a pure ref document that you can't really see because I'm not capturing the correct thing. Here you go. I've got a pure ref document with Jinx, so I can look at what she's looking at, or what she's looking like. And maybe a good way to start is, as I was saying, it's important when doing fan art to treat it like character design. And an important first step is to find out what to you are the important parts of a character. What are the things that are super distinct that I need in a Jinx design to keep her looking like Jinx? So that if people do buy a sticker or a charm of her, that they can look at her and be like, oh, nice, that is Jinx from Arcane. So that's really the goal of fan art. Some people, they draw characters so much that eventually they become kind of their own thing, and that's cool. You know, there's nothing wrong with that. There's no rules. But if you want something to be recognizable, you got to figure out what makes a character recognizable. Now for Jinx, obviously the hair is a big part of it. She's got this, what are these, bangs? Kinda. I mean, this big thing of hair that sticks out of her head that I think is very important. One of the overall big determining factors of her silhouette is this angular big spike of hair that comes out here. See that it juts up straight out, then curves, and then sort of has spikies that go on. And then her hair is tied back, which is less important because it doesn't add as much to the shapes. But the important thing is it ties back to probably her most distinct feature, which are the big ponytails. So we know we need the little spiky hair thing, and we know we need the ponytails. And those alone, we can kind of, if we get that, we can put her in any outfit and in a stylized style. People will be able to read it as Jinx. But we don't necessarily want it to look like a character in cosplay as Jinx. We want it to still be reminiscent of the character. And when you get into that, that's where you get into the facial details mostly, I think. Obviously there's some proportion stuff, but the face, figuring out how, especially in cartooning, to make a character's face distinct is super important. Because I could just have sort of a cartoon formula for the characters, where they've got big bulbous eyes and a little smile, and they all look like this, and then you customize them by putting the hair on them. It's like, yeah, okay, sure, that could be Jinx. That could look like Jinx. But also, then I could do like Like, oh, now that's Princess Peach, I guess. That's fine. Sometimes having a formulaic style that you can just dress up as other characters works. Look at, I don't know, Funko Pops. They're popular. People like those, I guess. And they're all just kind of the same dude dressed up as other different characters. But I like figuring out the character design puzzle that is making a character look like who they are. So with Jinx, what are the specific things that we can find? It's not going to be every indent and dip in her face. We're not going to do all of that because we are simplifying it. What is her general face shape? I think from my view, you might view it a little differently. That's fine. Her face is relatively round. It's not a ton of sharp features. She's got this round shape for her chin. Her cheekbones aren't super prominent. Her face is rounded. She's got this sort of childlike whimsy about her. She's also very sad. You know, she looks young. She has in a lot of scenes a air of innocence about her. That's, you know, bringing in from the start of the show her younger self as Powder, that influence of being an innocent kid. She still has that sort of wide-eyed puppy dog look to her. So just having a round face is enough to bring that in. Because not every character will have a round face, so that can be a distinct thing about her. Now, the other puppy dog thing is that she's not often having a great time. She's pretty bummed out. And we can find that in her eyes, and specifically, I think one of the big things is that she's got these deep, dark eye bags. And I don't think the shape of her eyes is like extremely distinct. I think we can do a lot with it. We could make them a little bit more big and angular. We can make them round, but whatever we make them, they need to have these big eye bags underneath, because I think they add so much to her design. Like if we go to something like this on my QRef document. No. Where did I go? The eye bags are probably the single most distinct part of her face, really. There's a lot of color around her eyes. Most of the rest of her is very pale, but the color is pretty much all centered around her eyes and like the pink iris, right? That's the part of the eye. So this is where our focus should be, and the biggest part of this focus are the eye bags down here. So those are the things we want to take from her face, is that her face is round, not round as in a cutesy, you know, sort of oblong thing, but a angular round face. In cartooning, a lot of the times, wherever the face is the longest informs you a lot about the character, and specifically with age. I think when you draw a character with a face that is especially wide, it's a bit more childlike, and a taller face is more mature, generally speaking. The effect of that a lot comes down, I think, to how prominent your cheekbones become as you age, and specifically losing cheek fat, because a baby is the most childlike that you can get. Obviously, they're babies, and babies have a ton. You cannot see babies' cheekbones at all. They're smuggling 2 big apples in their mouth at all times, and the face becomes a little shorter, a little wider, because they're babies. They got a ton of fat and gravity is not pulling it down yet. And then as you age, cheekbones become like one of the clearest signifiers of that, because gravity keeps pulling the face fat down. And it's not fat that you get from eating too much. It's not fat that you get from being unhealthy. It's just fat that is on our faces and does drop as time goes on. So if you don't want your character to look too cutesy or too childish, just giving them a slightly more realistically portioned head is a smart way to do it. Because if I have a head more like this shape for Jinx, then if I wanted to draw Isha or something who is a child, then I could do something more perfectly round, and it would let them be distinct. It would emphasize that Isha is a child because her face is shaped differently. It's more squashed, it's more stout, and then it would also, through that context, make Jinx's feel a little older because her face is a little longer. Everything in art is really all context about what is around it. And the nice thing about having characters interact with each other or designing them together is that you can emphasize features of one character simply by giving another character other features. So other than her face, which, how about we write down some stuff? Write down some stuff that we think is important about her whole look. All right, so we got the bangs, I guess. Is that what you would call that? Does anyone actually have hair that does something like this? What do you call that? Big angular spike of hair. It has sort of this shape. Yeah, that's how you know someone is a main character, is that they have the big hair. And then the braided pigtails, obviously extremely important. Then for her face, rounded face with prominent eye bags. And pink eyes, because those are pretty big. And then her nose and her mouth are relatively de-emphasized. They're not big features that really make the character be like, oh, that's Jinx. You know, if I cover up the nose, it doesn't, yeah, obviously she looks weird, but it doesn't change too much. It's not a prominent design of her thing, or a prominent piece of her design. In cartooning, I'll probably leave it out because it's just kind of a little button nose. it's not a big deal. Someone like Savika, her nose, I feel, is much more prominent to her design, as her face is a lot more angular. And when you have a character with a more angular, mature face, having more prominent landmarks helps communicate that. When a character is young or very feminine, a lot of the times we have far less bony landmarks coming out of the face. We simplify everything down. Do you need to do that? No, obviously. As we said earlier, feminine characters in cartooning are, on average, much more limited in what people do with them. Really, you can be as free as you want with characters. But because a bunch of cartoonists over the last ever of humans existing have spent a lot of times refining how to make things look simple and feminine and pretty, there are a lot of good ways to make that happen. Anyway, outside of the face, the most prominent parts of her outfit obviously is this shape here of her top, sort of triangular thing with the X in the middle. We need to make sure that's there because it's a very prominent part of her design. And her pants, it's more, I think, about the negative areas, really, that speak to her outfit. That you can see her arms and her torso, her legs here. We don't want to make any part of her clothing too big or too emphasized because she's skinny and she shows quite a lot of skin. And it's a big, important part of what makes her distinct is the contrast between wearing very dark clothing, having very light areas of skin. The most important ones, of course, being the ones where her cloud tattoos are showing. So rather than any specific part of the shape design of the clothes being the most important part, I think it's just the light versus dark contrast in her outfit versus her skin. And it's in the tattoos. I think those are super important parts. And then that her shoes are much bigger than a lot of the rest of her individual pieces of her outfit or design. And that comes around again to balance. That her head has a lot of the most prominent parts of her design, specifically with this big thing that sticks out of her silhouette and the pigtails that come down and enhance her silhouette. And then her design is very simple. In the middle between that, she's got belts, but it's basically this top that is small and not intrusive to her silhouette. It's not a big interruption. It's very simple. It doesn't change her silhouette. It's tight to her body. Same with her pants. They are simple. They're tight to her body. They don't change anything. And then her boots are big. They have these huge, what would you even call them? Collars, almost. I'm sure they have a better word for that I just can't think of right now. But they explode out from her and have a actually super distinct difference in her silhouette. Everywhere else, it's very tight to her skin. It's super simple. It's just her hair that sticks out and then the boots that stick out. which is a good way to go with a lot of design. Having repeating ideas on the top and the bottom to make things feel connected. There are different ways to go about it. You see it a lot with color. Jinx, it doesn't matter as much that she's only got the blue up top, because obviously with her hair, the blue goes all the way down. The blue is repeated in her zapper here. So we do have blue in multiple parts of the design, but the hair does a lot of the heavy lifting in bringing color balance to the whole thing. It's the most saturated part of her design. Her clothes, they've got this purple, but the purple is not her main color. The purple is just there because it's desaturated. It's interesting, but it's not taking away from the blue that we see prominently at the top. We see a little bit in the tattoos. We see a little bit in her gun, and the hair brings it all the way down to the bottom. The purple also connects a lot of the darker areas. It being in the middle means that it's kind of it's a bit of a grounding force, maybe. I don't know exactly the ideas behind that, but it's concentrated all in the middle, so you don't really need to spread it out over the design. But it does sort of bring the boots into the design more by having the same black or dark brown leather as the top with purple shoelaces that make the whole outfit feel connected. This is stuff that I haven't studied that much, so I'm talking out of my ass a little bit for the outfit stuff. But it's all in the idea of balance. Is that there's not a ton of weird colors in one spot that look out of place. Everything is balanced, everything plays nicely together. And we get it in the colors and in the design. So bring it back to what I was trying to say in the first place. Is we got the big shoes that stick out, the big hair that sticks out. It's pretty simple, thin in the middle. I suppose big shoes, big hair, break the silhouette. Rest is very simple. So those are what I view as some of the more important features of her design. Obviously there's a bunch of other things, but when it comes to something like her arm coverings or the specific shape of the clouds and stuff, those are not as super important as much as just they are that something like that is there. We have a lot of room to play with these, I think, because as long as we get all of this stuff right, she's gonna look like Jinx. So we kind of can do whatever. When it comes to constructing a body type, she's obviously very skinny. She's lanky, but she's not like super tall. So that'll be the next thing to figure out, is just a body shape. I've already managed to yap about this for an hour, so I do kind of have to go already. But I guess this is a decent preliminary thing for my thought process going into drawing Jinx, which we didn't actually do yet. But I'm gonna try just to have chill little streams throughout the day or throughout the week, just in the middle of the day. I don't know if I'll have as many. I don't think I'll do late night streams, especially in the winter because it gets dark. I don't want to do anything in the dark. So I'll probably just stream randomly in the middle of the day. If you ever can't catch one while it's live, I like YouTube because they're all saved, which makes things easier for me and more convenient for you guys. So I'll be back with drawing, actually starting to draw Jinx. And we'll try to put some of these ideas into practice. So until then, I suppose we will see you later. I appreciate you coming in. I'm just going to pop out.